So I'm going to take you through the steps to create the design or a design that you might use for your first stamp. So basically, a little bit about the material. So it's essentially, like I said, sort of a rubber stamp where the areas of the block, of this rubber block that you carve away, become the negative space, and those will be, if you're printing with white paper, those will show up as white. And whatever you leave on the surface will show up as the color that you print. So it's really similar to the scratch board, where with the scratch board you removed the white and you left the black. So it's really the same process or the same principle, except you're going to make another. The scratch board stops when you're done with the scratching, but here you carve and then you add ink and then you can make a print. And then you can actually make multiple prints, which is the nice thing about it, is that you can, like a stamp, you can repeat again and again and again. For creating a design, you can draw directly onto the block if you want to, but I find it easiest to work out a drawing ahead of time. And so I'm going to use, somebody in the Period 4 class made this nice little cityscape with some tulips in the foreground. So I'm going to use the tulips, and I'm going to trace it using this little piece of tracing paper. And here's my block. And the tracing paper is the same size as the block. So once I'm done with the tracing, I'm going to transfer the design to the block. With all the supplies that are out now, there are these really soft pencils, these Prismacolor pencils. They're basically like a 6B pencil that we used with the drawing unit. It's essentially the same thing. It's just that I have quite a lot of them, so there's plenty for people to use. So I'm going to trace out what I want to make a print of. Right. So that's my tracing paper. And when you go to transfer it, what you do is you take your piece of tracing paper and you flip it over. Make sure the block is pretty clean and free of dust or dirt. So flip your tracing paper over, and then again it helps to tape this down so it doesn't move. Take the pencil and then turn it on its side, and then just color on the back. So this is called burnishing. So you just burnish on the back. Anywhere where you have line work, you can see through the tracing paper and you can see where your lines are. You just color on the back, and what this is doing is it's pressing down the tracing paper enough that the soft carbon of the pencil is transferring to the surface. And you can check it to make sure it's working. So if I peel it back, I can see that it transferred. And as long as you bear down pretty hard with your original drawing, then the pencil line should show up when you go to do the transfer. So there's the design transferred directly to the block. So it's like basically like a photocopy onto the block. What do you do once you have your design? Then the next step is you start to do the carving. So I'll give you a little demo on the carving and how to use the tools. Also, there's lots of scrap material. So this is like throwaway rubber stamp material that you can use to practice a little bit before you go to do your final block. So if you want, grab a piece of the scrap material and just play around with the carving tools. The carving tools are called gouges, and they look like this. And what they are basically they're like little shovels that are sharp at the end. So, and they come in different sizes. So this one here is the smallest one, and it's a number 1. And if you turn it over, you can see the number 1 on the bottom. And then they range in size up to number 5. I think this one's a 4. So the 4 is much wider. It's like a wider shovel, so you can scoop out more material. So, and then when you use the tools, you basically, so think about it like a shovel. You just kind of shovel, like think about shoveling snow. When you go out to shovel snow, you push the shovel along the ground like that. So you basically slide the gouge along the surface, and then you pull out the material. You don't want to dig too deep, okay? Think about, like I said, shoveling snow, not digging a hole. You're not digging with a shovel in the dirt. You're sliding it along the surface, because if you dig too deep, then the block can really start to break down, and it can start to fall apart. Depending on your design, you can either carve the lines away or you can carve around the lines. It's really up to you. It just depends on how complicated your design is and what you want to do with the design. So, but you basically are gonna. This is not staying in place. Oh, right. I forgot about this. One more supply that's helpful are these rubber non-skid mats. And there's a bunch of these on the table. So these mats kind of help your block stay in place when you go to carve. And when you carve, you want to push the tool like this away from you, like I said, shoveling snow, and try to keep your free hand out of the path of the tool, because if your free hand is in the way, sometimes the tool can slip, and then you might gouge yourself. So just be really careful that you're keeping your free hand behind the block when you carve, and you're not holding the tool really close to your free hand. All right, if you do happen to cut yourself, it does happen. It's usually just a small cut, and I have Band-Aids and antibacterial soap, but just a warning that the tools are sharp. I've just carved out the left side of the tulip, the edge of the tulip, so I'm just doing some contour lines. And as long as you remove you skim the tool along the surface and remove some of the material, that should show up when you go to make the print. So what I'm going to do is, with the small tool, I'm just going to go around the edges of the building like this. And then with the larger tool, I'll then carve out I'll then go and carve out the material for the buildings. I'm going to carve away the background. I'm going to carefully go around the flowers and carve out the shapes of the buildings and remove all that material using a larger tool.